Good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are thrilled to be here tonight celebrating the Collection Plate by Kendra Allen. This event is co-sponsored by the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history, and we are joined in conversation by one of our very favorite folks, Kiese Laymon. We know that this is going to be a really fun conversation. We want you to make yourselves at home in the chat. Shout out where you're watching from. Shout out, if you already a fan of Kendra's, if you've already read When You Learn the Alphabet, let us know. Let us know what brings you here tonight. All those things we love to see our folks in the chat. We want to let you know that Morris Gardner, who is our favorite public services managing librarian, is going to be dropping knowledge in the chat as well. So those links will stay up, so you don't need to rush and click all of them. Just know they will be there at the end. You can go back and revisit them. So I want to introduce formally Kendra Allen. Kendra was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. She is the recipient of the 2018 Iowa Prize for Literary Nonfiction for her essay collection, When You Learn the Alphabet, and that was awarded by Kiese Laymon. She has been featured on C-SPAN, interviewed for The Rumpus, and in Poets and Writers, and her work has been taught by New York Times bestselling author Jason Reynolds, alongside that of Jamaica Kincaid and Eve Ewing, among other distinctions. And we are here tonight to be the launch of the Collection Plate, which is an amazing collection. And we're really excited that Kendra wanted Kiese to be here because obviously he is part of your literary history and the person who sort of, helped see some of your work and bring it into the public eye. And Kiese is a Black Southern writer from Jackson, Mississippi. His best-selling memoir, Heavy, an American Memoir, won the 2019 Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Nonfiction, 2018 Christopher Isherwood Prize for Autobiographical Prose, the Austin Riggs Erickson Prize for Excellence in Mental Health Media, and was named one of the 50 best memoirs of the past 50 years by the New York Times. The audiobook read by the author was named the Audible 2018 Audiobook of the Year, and Heavy was a finalist for the Hurston Wright Legacy Award in Nonfiction and the Kirkus Prize. We are also super excited about the very beautiful repackaging of both of Kiese's first two books. We are very honored to be getting to sell those in the format that they are intended to be in. So How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America and Long Division, those are available for sale. So we will make sure to drop all of those things in the chat. All right, let me get out of the way. I know y'all ready. I'm gonna hush. Thanks for being here, y'all. Be sure put those questions in the chat for us so that you can be a part of this conversation. All right, bye.
Oh, family, I'm so happy to be here with you and to be here with you through Charis. Like that's home to me. I feel like that's home. I'm gonna say that. I know Square Books and I'm gonna be mad. Family, before we get into this, because I want to.
Hello? Y'all hear me?
We can hear you. I think Kiese just froze. It's all good. He'll be back.
Okay. I was like, am I tripping? Hey, y'all. Y'all see my mama talking about my Vaseline lips like she didn't lather me in Vaseline my whole life. It's your problem.
So I think this is a good time. Kiese was going to ask you to read. Why don't you go ahead and read while we're getting him back, okay?
Okay. So hey, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming. I'm like so excited to the point where like I'm calm. But I'm going to read a poem for y'all from the Collection Plate out today. Go get that. Go get it for your friends, your homegirls, your homeboys, anybody. And I'm going to read the opening poem to the book. It's called Evening Service. And basically, this poem is just about me being 8 years old. And okay, you're back. Okay, you okay?
Do you?
Okay, so I'm just gonna read the poem. Okay, And basically this is about me getting baptized when I was 8 years old. I was like so excited to get baptized because I've been brainwashed. And I was like, I'm getting saved and I ain't going to hell. Meanwhile, like all the stuff that will probably make me go to hell, I did afterwards. Okay, so this is called evening service. All you need to know is that my great uncle was the pastor of this church, this little house of a church on the block in Pleasant Grove. Okay, evening service. When it's time for the invitation, we say, Our Father, today is a blessed one. Walk to the front of the altar in my pretty printed please you dress, socks with the ruffles at the ankle ready to give this life over or never see eternity. I sit in the chair and the pastor thanks Mama for her persuasion. The pastor is our uncle, and our uncle tells me in 2 weeks I'm going to be saved. In 2 weeks, this a renewed discipline. But still, he's so stingy. This impatience for assurance leads me back. They get me ready, and my come let us adore him. Mama tell me to take off my panties. She forgot to bring extra types of loss. At set time, I walk out from behind. The choir stands. The curtains open. The people scream. There's dead water bugs wrapped around fallen leaves from no sky. In the tub I'm in, my uncle recites a scripture so it don't look like we live here for the good show. I watch them congregate over the sinning as water rushes down the amen. My feet panicked because they can't touch an end. I envision modeled men, his hand holding nostrils, my mouth miracled. If I could sing, this wouldn't be loveless. If I could swim, I wouldn't die. The pastor is our uncle, and our uncle holds me under at a distance. The pastor is our uncle, and our uncle divests me of my volition. Back on land, I drip, I dribble, I cough up who I should have been. The people clap at how clean, how quickly my design has ripped their wants. An encore for me to swallow it better, hold it all in longer, say sorry for wasting my first 8 years of life. Thank y'all.
Woo. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened with my suspect internet. Family, thank you for this book. Thank you for the title. Thank you for the cover art. But you literally are someone whose work I met. I feel like long before we actually met. And I think we talked about this at some point. But when I read that essay collection, I was I think I was teaching at Iowa that semester, and it was for the Iowa Nonfiction Book Prize. And I just remember like smiling the entire book. And that's hard. You know what I mean? But like, when a book like gets you from word one to the last word, and you're writing about some hard shit in there, but you're doing it in a way that felt like so familiar, but also just so like extra unfamiliar, and it's like greatness. So I just want to thank you for writing that book publicly, because I don't know if I publicly thank you for that. Also want to thank your mama for having you. I got to meet your mom in Columbus. We were in Columbus, and I had never watched someone's mother watch them do their thing, and fam, like your mama brought another layer.
No. Am I still in motion?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
I think Kiese's internet's just dipping out a little bit, so hopefully.
It's that New York Wi-Fi, man. Too many people.
I know. It's gonna come back though. We have faith.
But yeah, what he was saying was my mama. He met my mama in Columbus, and Yeah, my mama is like a star. Like if you ever met my mama, she like if you like me, you won't like me when you meet my mama because she's like me times 100. And like she's just like so loving and so caring. And I just want to say, even while Kiese is like not on here, the only reason I submitted that book to that prize is because I saw that he was judging. Because I would have never ever, I didn't even think I had a book. I just had like a lot of work that I did in undergrad, and I just sort of put it together. And I just want to thank him publicly for not only being my favorite writer. His book, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America, the first version of that, literally showed me how to write essays like I'd never seen anybody be from the South and like talk about the things I was talking about, talk about like rap the way he was talking about it, but like in like a critique sense, but also like in a personal narrative sense. And so when I just read that for the first time, it was like the end of 2013, I want to say. Changed my life. You can tell anybody in my life, like whenever I'm talking about books, I'm like, hey, you need to read this, or hey, look at this essay, the Hey Lester Myers essay. Like, come on now, ain't nobody doing that. So I'm just like so grateful to be here. So grateful that he said yes to this. I'm rambling now because I don't really know what to say. But yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was still working. Is there another poem you'd like folks to hear?
Yeah, I can read another poem. I read the first poem, so I think that I'm gonna read the last poem now because this is probably one of my favorite ones in the piece. This one actually was gonna be the first poem. Okay, you back? Hey,
I don't know, fam. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I'm gonna try to not. Somebody told me I need to stop moving so much, and just I'm gonna try to not move my head. But
Good
also,
luck.
there's some storms and stuff going on. But what I'd asked was how your mama was doing.
Uh-huh. My mama she's doing good. She's like super proud. She's like proud to the point where like she forces you to like be proud. Cause I'm not a person who generally like lives in the happy state of like accomplishments very long.
Yeah.
Like if I hear like I did something that I work towards, like I'm actually proud of, I'm like, okay, this is great. I feel good for a couple hours. And I'm like, okay, what I'm gonna do next? And that's not always good, but my mama is that person who is always like, so what you gonna eat today? Because you know your book came out, you gonna go get you something to eat.
Yeah.
Like she's always like in the mode of celebrating. So I'm like very grateful to like just have her around to like tell me that I need to celebrate wins. Because I wasn't as happy and like content as I am with that essay collection when that came out versus like where I am now, where like I can actually be happy for myself, like mentally. Yeah.
I was saying, I don't know if I got cut off, but watching your mama watch you when we were in Columbus reminded me of when I used to watch people who could ball, watch their parents like watch them, you know. And like I used to have friends whose parents would like keep their own stats. I feel like your mama was keeping your literary stats while you were performing in Columbus, fam. She had me so hyped. I'm trying not to move my head too much. But I wondered what it was like to write a book so exploratory and critical in a way of some of the ways that she helped raise you, particularly in a relationship to the church. Can we start there?
I think, yeah, because I really had to think about that. Let me think about my answer before I just say some wild stuff. I think I always been a child who had a smart mouth and always like questioned stuff. Like even if I was like a rule follower in terms of like I didn't really want to get in trouble, like I didn't want an adult to like catch me doing something, which in turn made me be sneaky. I think I was always a child who questioned like, why we gotta stand up when this dude like walk in the church just because he the pastor, or like why do I gotta go to Sunday school, morning worship, and evening service? Like, can we just pick one of those things? And so my mama, she was always she didn't start going back to church until she had me when she was 28 years old. So she was like out of the church, she wasn't really going. And she kind of grew up in it, as in my granny told all her kids, you better go on Sunday while I'm at work. And I'm going to ask you what the pastor said, and y'all better be on one accord, or like I'm going to know you didn't go.
Yeah.
And so when she had me, she like wanted to raise me in that. And I was always just like, Mama, like, this ain't me. Like, I don't want to go. I don't want to wear this stuff. It's just like too many rules where I'm a mess up. Like, I can do rules, but I can't do 100 rules on how to be a person.
Right.
And that is like what the church kind of instilled in me very, very early. Like, I loved it as a child. I loved singing in the choir. I loved like just participating and like being seen, because it gave me like this attention of where like, oh, Kendra, you're doing a good job. You know, God love you and things like that. But like, this guy that y'all talking about gonna love me regardless if y'all say that he's who he is. And so I think like when I'm critiquing the ways that my mama sort of like raised me in that setting, it's not scary for me because I do it in real life. Like me and my mama are like super close. If you ever seen us in conversation, it's just like, girl, like what you talking about? And like, girl, that ain't right. Or like, you gonna let them kill you if you keep doing this. So like we very open like that. So like when I'm writing, I never ever think like my mama is gonna feel a way about it. But even if my mama do feel a way about it, she'll just tell me, we'll talk about it, we'll disagree, because we disagree a lot, and then that'll be that. So I was never like coming to the page thinking that it's gonna mess up her relationship to her church or like to her religion or to like her God. Like I've never thought that, because it's not even about her really. If I'm being for real, it's not even about her. It's just about like the ways that we exist in the same space, but like have different experiences.
Yeah. You know, there's some lines in this collection, and one of them is what you do when you do wound forthcoming. You in that piece, wound forthcoming. And I want to get to that, but I'm also just interested in the way you recast like people, men, family, women, performative, like Blackness in churches, but especially you are recasting like our relationships to water in that supposed holy place, right? And all through the collection, we get wetness in all of these spaces and places that we know. And I think it's so important that we get the wetnesses that we get right next to this supposed like holy water that a lot of us were dumped in. Can you talk to me about when you found water as one of the through lines for the collection plate?
Yeah, I was at University of Alabama. I was in grad school. I was not happy in grad school. It was like the worst of times, the best of times. And I was not happy. I was like in my last sort of like semester, and I was in a documentary poetics course. And I wasn't really, what was weird about that was I was there for nonfiction, but through my time, I only took 2 nonfiction courses because there wasn't no nonfiction teacher there. But yeah, anyways, that's another problem. But I was taking like this documentary poetics course, and we had to pick a topic for the semester. And I picked the desegregation of Alabama swimming pools. And of course, like during that research, I was just getting mad. Like I was like, I don't know why I picked this. I'm finna have an attitude while these white people up in this class. I'm not trying to write about this. Like I already know this stuff happened. I know we died in the water, and that we couldn't swim in the pools.
Right.
But through that research, like I discovered Lonnie Johnson, who like created the Super Soaker, and he was from Alabama, and he went to UA, and of course, like he dealt with like all that dumb stuff that was going on, like gatekeeping and stuff. But I started writing like poems about his life, and I was just like, okay, so water, Super Soaker, and I was also thinking about pools and my relationship. I can't swim that good. Like I could swim in water 6 feet and under, but you're not finna just throw me in like no 13 feet pool. Like that's not gonna happen.
Wait. Oh, wait. 6 feet and under?
Yes.
Wait, you can swim. What's the difference between 6 feet and under and 12 feet and under in terms of swimming?
Look, that's what I'm saying. I'm not like sitting to float and like doggy paddle. I'm like an underwater swimmer. If I can't really feel I'm not that tall. If I can't feel my feet under me, like we finna get a life jacket or that just ain't gonna be us.
I feel you.
I'm not large bodies of water. I'll go in, but I'm gonna see the shore. But yeah, and so I was thinking about like my own relationship to water. I was also like a counselor for a few years at like this sickle cell camp, and it's nothing but like Black children. And like their favorite thing is to go to the swimming pool every single day. Like they make them go every single day, and we see them like from summer to summer. Like they can't swim, then they come back next summer, got a red wristband, and like just jumping in, diving in. It's like beautiful to see, and I also started thinking about, like I said, I wasn't happy, and I was like in like a deep like depression. And so I was thinking about tears, I was thinking about sweat, I was thinking about like all this stuff. Also, I should say, like for a year and a half, I was just like extremely high every day. So that probably that like extremely like edible high, because I can't smoke because I got asthma. And so I learned how to make the edibles. And I was just like just sitting on my futon every day, just thinking about like things dripping and like tears falling and things like that. And so my original, this is a long story, I'm really rambling. And so I was thinking about like just this weight of like sweat and like tears like falling off of you, and like just trying to like get up off the couch literally. And my original plan was just like to write about like getting my hair washed as a kid, or getting in the water as a kid, or learning to swim, or like almost drowning as a kid, like just all these things dealing with water. But also in like a larger societal sense. That's when I started thinking about like Flint, Michigan and things like that. And that was my original goal. And then at some point I was like, those water poems are not just like about like documenting something that's happening in the world. It's really like documenting like my unraveling and like my like breakthrough getting out of that. And I don't know how wetness relates to that, but that's where my mind was going when I was on them edibles like that. Like I was just sitting there like, bro, like dang girl, you really is like going through it, and you don't even know how to go through it because you don't know how to deal with your feelings. So like I couldn't write an essay, so I just started writing poetry, and like that was the theme. Like 6 months afterwards, I saw the theme. It wasn't on purpose. Like I just looked back and I was like, oh, I'm like really writing about like the same thing. I'm writing about our father in like a larger sense, and also like this water and how it coexists together. So yeah.
Do you feel like your poetry is able to kind of move itself into the cracks and crevices of what you're writing about in a different way than the essays? I know I understand you're giving this form over partially to edibles, but there's just some moves you make in this mug that I just keep on asking myself, is that move possible in essay writing? But like, what are you able to do in this book with these forms? Because you fucking the page up. The whole like you're fucking the page up as a writer, but you literally fucking the page up, right? Like the page, you're doing shit on the page I've never seen. But like, how is that different than what you do when you do essays?
I think I say this often, like I think I was originally supposed to be a poet who just like messed around and wrote like a mediocre essay that like somebody liked, and I had to stick with it. So I think that's really what it is. But also I'm like very grateful that like I wasn't taught poetry in like a school setting. Like I don't know anything about forms. I don't know what a sestina is. I don't know what a sonnet. I wouldn't know how to write a sonnet. If you like put a gun to my head, I'm be like, bro, I don't know. And I'm gonna be bad. Because I don't know. Like I literally don't know. And I think that's really served me when I really like finished like drafts of these poems, and I was like, I just don't like how it looked. And so I just started like same thing I've like experienced with essay writing, but it's harder to do because it's way more words. And I think with poetry, like when I first started, I don't want to say like started writing poems, like writing through like what I was going through, it was way easier for me to do when I break it up in different parts. And I think like that's where you see like this chaotic nature on the page. It's because like that was what was happening in my mind. Like I wanted it to reflect that. If I was talking about a swimming pool, I wanted it to be like parallel, like the lanes of a swimming pool. And about I'm also thinking like dominoes growing up, I would watch like my parents, like every Friday night, like they'll have this little black table, throw the powder on the table, play dominoes. And as a kid, I didn't know what they was doing. I would think they were just like making shapes. And I thought that's like how you played dominoes. It was like, oh, like you just making like patterns and like shapes. Meanwhile, they counting and they cheating and they doing all this other stuff. Like it's a tactic to it, but I wasn't aware of that till like later on. And so like when I approached poetry, I kind of just approached it that same way of like, I don't know all the rules, so I'm gonna create my own rules. And like maybe it's wrong, but like, so what? Like y'all didn't like write this.
and you know, one of the things that you did with the alphabet, the essay book, is I'm thinking a lot about like pre-language us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so many of us who grew up Black and in the South and in these churches, there's visuals and there's sounds, but you know, because of the way world works, like we've heard words people use the shape to talk about, but we haven't seen them written. And when I was reading the collection plate, I thought about like that little in my grandmama church, it was like this little felt area like in the collection plate, and it was real raggedy though. You know what I'm saying? It was maroon. And same shit, right?
Yes.
And you made me I had not thought about that frayed nature of that shit. And let me tell you a line. It was weird, was real weird. It's like I want to read the line that made me think about it because it has nothing to do with a church poem. But it was this line you wrote. You wrote it and it starts off, when my sky fell, all I asked for was gold teeth. That's a monster beginning, but you put me back to the age of being a shorty when I used to watch motherfuckers get up and put like nothing in them little envelopes. You know, broke niggas would walk around with them envelopes and act like they was putting shit in the collection plate.
Every quarters in there, like literally.
Empty like a motherfucker. But all I wanted at that point was gold teeth and to have an affair with the sister who had the gold teeth. Now that sister was like 56. My nigga, I was like 8. But I want to talk about gold teeth and beginnings. When my sky fell, all I asked for was gold teeth. Talk to us about that line.
That line at first was all I asked for was more teeth, and that just ain't feel right because I already got a lot of teeth. Like it just, I'm very toothy.
You teethy like a mug.
Yeah. And so it just didn't feel right. And again, I started thinking about like being a kid, and I was like, I had a best friend growing up. Her name was Kendra too. And like, this was like my best friend. Like, I don't think I've ever had like a closer friendship than like with Kendra. And like afterwards, it was like, I ain't trying to be friends like this with nobody else because that's too much work. Right. This was like my first like real best friend. And like, we would do like everything together. And like, she was getting tattoos in like 6th grade. Like, I feel like we had a rivalry, like a frenemy kind of friendship. Like we were into the same stuff. We loved to dance. And so we wanted like grills. And also like this is during the time where like we would wear like the gum wrapper in our teeth.
Yeah.
And like Nelly was out and like all this stuff. And so we just thought we was cool. And so when I wrote that line, I was just thinking about like, the one thing that I wanted as a kid, I really wanted like gold caps. Like that's all I wanted. And I wanted like like 2 caps on each side and then like a whole bottom row. And so I was thinking about like what that represented to me. It didn't really represent wealth. It didn't represent like money. Like I'm not a person who like ever really cared about that kind of stuff. Right. But it represents to me like a freedom, like more teeth and like more teeth, like the dedication in the book is like for my mouth and things like that. I got a big mouth. I talk a lot. You get me going, I'm not gonna shut up, especially if I'm passionate about it. And so I'm passionate about everything. So that was a weird thing to say. Anything, I'm a talk. But I was just thinking about like as a kid, like what those teeth represented to me, and it represented like closeness and like freedom at the same time. Like I felt close to her when like we would do the same things, and like when we would make up dances, or but like when she came to school with those teeth, I was like, damn. Like you really did that without me. And it was the beginning of the end. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah, that line for me just represented like the universe. Like I wanted more teeth. I wanted more time to like say what I wanted to say and like express myself, because it's like I ramble a lot, but I'll get to the point at the end. And like if I have more teeth, but gold teeth, I can get that like clear, like that clarity of that.
Yeah. And that line, fam, even what you just said, like beautifully reeks of someone who is aware that death is right there. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you write about, as much as you write about water and as much as you write about family and I think ritual, you also write about death. And there's a line in this where you like, you said like you've died twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I always I think it's probably dealing with like growing up in church. Like I always been content with death. Like I always knew that like death is looming and like death is coming. So I never like feared it. Not even like my own death, but just like the death of people I love. Me and my mama talk about death all the time, and she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do if Granny die and you die. Like I'll be okay if like anybody, like I get through it, but like if you die and Granny die, they gonna just have to like, I don't know what they gonna do, but I ain't gonna be me no more. Right. And I feel like that about my mama. Like my mama died, just take me with her, right then and there. Like I'm not gonna make it. Right. And so I just always thought of death as of course, like you can't escape it, but I've always felt like a contentment when I think about death. And I love exploring like the possibilities of how, this sounds weird, of how I'm gonna like go. And I think this book, like it's like very like, what's the word, veiled. It's not like so clear that I'm talking about like me dying, but a lot of those times it's like, how would the world still move like if I was not here no more? Or how would the world still move like when my mama get up out of here? Or like how would the world still, like how would my family halt if my granny died? Right. Like all these changes that are made. And so like when I write, it's like I'm trying to beat that clock. Like I'm trying to beat the outcome. I'm a person who's always like rushed my life. I think that's why I have a hard time like being happy about in the moment, or like being present in the moment. Like I'm a person always thinking about like my future. Like I want a career and I'm doing anything to get a career. And if I get that, what's next? Like I want this certain thing to happen in my career. Or I'm also a person want to get older. Like I've always been hung around like older people. And I'm a person who like perpetually just want to be 40 years old. Like I cannot wait to be 40. Like that's my life goal. It's just to be 40.
40 ain't no joke. That's the truth. I love 40. I mean, it was 6 years ago, but I was like, shit, I like this. Yeah.
See, I'ma feel that. Like if I can't be 40, I at least want to be 35. And if I can't be 35, I want to be 53. Like it's just always like older. And so like I always just put myself in like positions to like learn from like the older people around me, just to listen. But even like young kids too. It's either kids or like older people. I don't never listen to nobody my age, because you're doing the same thing I'm doing. And not knowing. Yeah. I listen, but like I'm not gonna like really take it to heart like I would. Yeah. And so I think like that's probably death the same. I'm always looking ahead because I know like it's an end. Like this all stops. Like everything stops. And that's the one thing that I learned through the church. Like so many funerals that go through the church, so many lost ones. I remember like the first person I remember dying was this girl who I grew up in the church with. Like she went off to college. She left home, went to college, and that first year of college, she got shot in the head and like died outside at a party. Mm-hmm. And like I just saw like how the church like gathered around and like just reacted to that, and like how just shut down. And like the thing that they said is gonna always happen to us, and like you have to hold faith and like keep believing. All that went out the window when like she died. I'm just like, okay, so like, what are y'all teaching us? Because like everything that y'all told us gonna happen, but then when it happened and you told us like this is how we should like cease without praying, like pray
Yeah.
without ceasing and all this stuff. Like it's not happening. Like I don't see it. And I think seeing that as a kid, like really, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm rambling now, but yeah.
You're not rambling shit. Nah, man. I mean, I feel that deeply, and I feel, and also like to go back to what you were saying about sickle cell, like the way you wove and freaked that into some of the poem. But you're also, to speak about premature death, I feel like water is in some way deathly in this, among other things. It's death in this, And there's that line, I wrote it down. You're talking about water, and you said niggas know how to do everything, but stay above it. Let me talk to me about that line.
That's a fact. I would pat myself on the back for that.
That's a fact.
Yes, because that's what niggas do. Like we
fact.
just like talk to like keep our head above everything, no matter what happened, no matter what we feeling, no matter what weight is on us. It's just like you gonna keep your head up and you gonna keep going. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think like most of us, we grow up thinking that's just what you do. Like be strong. And I won't get my hair wet. I think that's why I added that at the end, but I won't get my hair wet.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sinking and I'm falling and like I'm going under, this hair not finna get wet. Like I'm not gonna let you like take me out. Yeah. And I think like I don't even think I subscribe to that anymore, like that strong narrative. Cause it's just like we really need to sit in weakness sometimes. Like we really need to sit in it. We need to learn how to say no. We need to learn how to say I'm tired. We need to stick to our no. And I think like just seeing my family, all my family, my mama's side anyway, it's like very deep into like the church, and like it's a lot. But I just think me, when I come in and I'm just like, nah, I don't want to go to church, or like, nah, I'm not finna do that, or like telling like a parent no, when like, especially a parent who's done everything for you. Like if I tell my mama no, she'll literally be like, what you mean no? Right. And that's weird to say because she's literally done everything for me, and it just feels bad if I just be like, nah, I ain't doing that, or like, nah, I don't want to do that, and having to explain it. I think there's like a moment where I have to tell myself I'm saying no so my mama can be able to say no now. Because I never saw my mama say no my whole life. Like I never saw her do it. Whatever the family needs, she was going to be the one to do it. In fact, they expect her to do it. And then they act like they entitled to it. So I think like me saying no and like setting boundaries, learning to anyway, because I don't always do it. It's like giving her permission that she can do it. Like I see her even with my granny, like she'll say something that my granny did. She was like, I had to tell her, like, why would you do that? And so I'm like, you told granny that? And she was like, yeah. And so I think like the main thing is that I'm learning that I have to like be an example of like that keeping your head above water shit, like that don't work. Like that do not work, because you gonna really go under if you keep trying to do that. If you keep trying to doggy pedal your way out of the stuff that you need to deal with, like in your head, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit, in your body. Like if you keep trying to pedal away from that, which is what I was doing in 2019, which is why I wrote this book without knowing that I was writing it. It was just like, I'm going in circles. I'm finna go under. I'm gonna really get snatched down. It's gonna be real quick, and it's gonna be worse than what it would have been if I just tried to let my hair get wet. Yeah, I said all that, Lord.
You listen. You spinning that goal right now. You spinning that goal, and when you and what you just said, Kendra, I grew up with my mom, my grandma, my aunties in Mississippi, and we went to my grandmama church in East Mississippi. And I just kept thinking, reading the collection plate, about that point in your life when you were strong enough to say, I'm drowning, not to yourself, but to other people. Because I come from Black women who have had too much shit put on their backs, and then they get in this life, in this slash water, and be drowning. But then they be like, oh, but my, and they think, and my mom and then grandma and them think like, my mama like, if you can correct English your way out of drowning. My grandma was like, you can hard work and like stunt your way out of drowning, but none of that shit stop you from drowning unless none of them motherfuckers want to just be like, I'm drowning. But your book is about like how the traditions that also give us so much somehow aid in that drowning. But at what point were you able to say to yourself, one, and to somebody else, you know what? This water with all them bugs and shit, it's killing me. I felt like you said it before this book, and I feel like this book allowed you to say it like more magnificently, but I might be wrong. Like, when were you able to say I'm drowning and I want to breathe?
Oh, thank you for that question. Oh, thank you. Because like it was, I want to say like after when you learn the alphabet, I was saying it like I was hitting at it. I was telling, like I tell my mama stuff. I don't really tell like nobody else. And I was telling my mama, it was a lot of stuff happening before When You Learn the Alphabet came out. And so I was in Alabama, didn't want to be there. And like, I was just like depressed and it was coming out in my skin. Like I literally had like warts like on my face. It was just like, it was gross. And so I ended up getting on Accutane. And what they'll tell you about Accutane is a side effect of that is depression and ashiness. And so my lips was all dry.
Now, hold on.
Yes, whole body ashy.
Not
And
the
it's just
edge.
like, yes. And so like on top of the already depressed state I was in, it added like another layer of depression. And I was just having like a very hard time. And I also started therapy during that time. And what they don't tell you about therapy is like the first 3 months, you're like, what are we doing? Like, what is going on? And then something hit like I'm sorry to say Accutane is anti-black.
I believe it.
It's trash.
I believe it.
but yeah, I had went to New Orleans. Okay, so the book came out, and so I was already like preparing for like the aftermath of this book coming out. And so like the week, like I had a release party in Alabama, and like the day before the release party, I was on the phone with my dad. He was like, he's not coming because I wrote about him. I haven't talked to him since then. That was 2 years ago. And so they added on to that. And also, it was like a level of like heartbreak that I was experiencing that I didn't really want to admit. Like I was heartbroken that like I knew this was going to be like the outcome of this book, but like the fact that I could actually see like it happening, I just like felt like really heartbroken and like mad and angry at myself because I knew that was going to happen and I didn't like protect myself enough to like not get close. And so that was happening. I went to New Orleans and I had a reading, and it was like probably one of my favorite readings. But like I was walking down the street like drunk in the mud, like just so drunk, also very, very high. And so like we was on bourbon, and like my whole family, like my daddy's side and my mama's side was there. And I ain't seen that happen since I was like real little. And so that was already weird, but it was very fun. And so I was just walking down the street and like, I just got hit with like all the therapy stuff I was talking about. And I was just walking down the street replaying like a Denzel Curry song on repeat, like the song called Taboo. That album is amazing, but another topic. And so like that was just hitting me, and I started thinking about like something that happened to me when I was a kid. And I was like, I've been really like making stuff up to like not have to say that this happened when I was little. And so like that was hitting me in New Orleans. And so I came back home and I was telling my mama, she thought I was depressed because my skin was messed up, which I was, but it was like all this other stuff like built. I was like really, really dealing with like my first like heartbreak ever with my dad. And so, which is another like weird like thing happening. And so I was trying to let that go, but also deal with like thing like repressed memory, and that was coming up in therapy. And also like anger, like I realized like I resented like most of my family my whole life because of like the relationship to my mama. Like I resented them. Like I was just like, bro, like if I can cut all y'all off, I would. And so I think like after that book came out, that entire year after that, it was just like the worst. It was like the worst every single day. That's why I was so high, because I didn't know how to like deal with like those feelings and emotions, because I always like work my way through stuff. Like I'm like, I got homework to do, or like I got all this other, I got papers to grade, or like I got a TV show to watch. And it's just like all this stuff like to avoid it. And so I think I told my mama, I was like, I'm depressed. Like I just started like snapping on people a lot. And like it was coming out, like people could notice like something was wrong with me because I was meaner than usual. And I was like, I'm depressed. Y'all need to leave me alone. And I told y'all I was depressed and y'all didn't listen and blah, blah, blah. And so she was like, it's when she said, like, I said 2019 was like the worst year that I've experienced so far. And she was like, what you mean? Like your book came out that year. That's what she responded with. And I was like, bro, like I'm done. I'm not doing none of this. And I think that was the moment where I really, another thing when you start therapy, that's all you talk about. Like my therapist said, blah, blah, blah. My therapist said. And so that was me. And I was like, oh, y'all need to go to therapy. I started diagnosing people and like just acting wild. And I think like that was the moment where I really started to like be honest with like me feeling not good about myself, like not being proud of anything I've done, not thinking I'm good enough, not thinking like I'm worthy of nice things, or like not worthy of love, or not being even lovable in like a long-term sense. Like I really had to like sit with that. I was like, I'm the friend who's like a great time and I make you laugh. And like that's a performance in itself. Like you don't know how to stop it. Like you really don't know how to stop it when you that friend, or when you that person for your family who they look at you like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and like you're doing a great thing and like make us proud. It's like, bro, like y'all niggas gotta sit down because like y'all stressing me out and I can't do it. And I think like those were that moment, like maybe a year after When You Learn the Alphabet came out, that I really started like just being honest in my writing. Like people say my writing is honest, but I wasn't really like being honest. And When You Learn the Alphabet, I took so much stuff out of that. And I'm just like, if I did that to like protect people and I still got this outcome, I should have just said what I wanted to say. Because those were the moments like after that book release, like a year afterwards, where I really like just started to realize like I'm not happy with like who I am as like a person.
I'm so glad that you took steps to heal and love you during that time, you know, because you know it's hard to talk about, because so many of us, once we decide we want to be writers, your dream is just to have a book, right? And at least in me and my family. And you know, after Heavy, fam, like I ain't been that sad in my life. Like in my I mean, and I never said this on a camera, but I'm gonna say it to you because of what you just said. You know, I did not go to therapy during Heavy, and I didn't really go to therapy at all after Heavy, which is crazy. And I was so fucked up. And every day I'm getting a call saying that, you know, the book did well or this, that, and the third. But I felt so sad. And I was going to check myself into this like really nice facility up north, my nigga. And then the facility I'm trying to check myself into gave me an award a week before I was going to check. Yeah, it was like a mental health award. And then I was like, oh shit, I can't do, like, they think I'm all right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they think I'm, and but then I was just like, who do I tell I'm drowning? Because everybody I know gonna be like, nigga, you got this, that, and the third.
Yes.
How the fuck are you drowning? And reading the collection play.
Again, oh, can I say something to what you just said? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you so much. Like, that's something I wanted to ask you, because I'm not even near the amount of people who like just come to you and like tell you that they love your work. Like I cannot imagine being in your shoes and like writing something like Heavy, and then like people just in your face smiling and you like, what is going on? So I wanted to like ask you, like not in like a rude way, but like is it exhausting, like feeling so like being looked at as like so loved and like so revered and like so like, is it exhausting knowing that like people look at you like in a powerful way to where like what you say sticks? Like, is that like a I don't even know how I'm trying to word my
I
question.
feel what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know if it's because I feel you completely. I just don't ever. I don't see it like that. You know, I mean, I feel like I'm like you in that. Like I mean, you know, if I feel like if I pushed you and I was like, all right, Kendra, like I want you to tell me how dope you are. No, if I was like, because this nigga over here said you ain't shit, I believe then you might list some shit, you know. And I'm like that, you know. Like I'm just out here trying to fucking make art,
Yeah,
and survive and take care of my people best I can, and be better today than I am yesterday. And then that book come out, you're right, and then motherfuckers do start to kind of see you and talk to you differently. And I just didn't know. I literally just didn't know who to talk to. You know what I'm saying? Like I could not talk to my mom. I could not talk to my father. I couldn't talk to my grandmama. I couldn't really talk. I mean, I could, but I did not have the courage to. And what I'm saying is when I read the collection plate, I was like, yo, you keep looking for courage. When courage ain't what you need, right? Like it's the crumbs of why. And that's what I see you doing, like going back to the crumbs of how and why we became, and the crumbs of how and why we feel shame sometimes about quote unquote success. And when I followed them crumbs back, sometimes I try to say I found it in my grandmama's church, but I mean my grandmama's house. But you reminded me like my crumbs sort of almost all lead back to that church. Because like why that church kept us alive, it was a lot of dishonesty happening up in that motherfucking church. You know what I mean? And like it would be dishonesty that everybody knew was collectively dishonest, but we gonna act like it's not true for what though?
Yes.
For what? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
it's 100%, 100% that, because that was my problem. It was like y'all are doing these teachings. First of all, I don't understand why we gotta sing 3 songs and then the pastor get up and do a solo, and he do a solo for 10 minutes, and then he preach for an hour and a half. But he could have just said this in 15 minutes. But I'm just thinking about like all the stuff that went down in that church that everybody knew about, and like nobody said something. Okay, for instance, like when my uncle died, he died, right? He was old. He just died of like old age. I don't really remember. I was young, but he might have just died old age. But yeah, but he died, and I remember like the next week after the funeral, like we get a new pastor, like the associate pastor, and this lady, like sister so and so, like she goes up during the invitation, and she starts like giving her testimony about like we could see where it's leading. Like she used to be the pastor's mistress, and so like she was going into the story, and I promise you, all the men got up in church, took her mic, cut her mic off, led her out of the church, didn't even let her say nothing. And like I would see stuff like that as a kid. I'm like, bro, like I think a lot of like my qualms with the church is that like I was like envious of the patriarchy that was going on in it. I was like, I grew up like that. I really had to deal with that too, like internalized misogyny, all that stuff. Just like being envious that like you have like the gall to like snatch this lady microwave and like not let her tell her story, and literally like carry her out of the church, like push her out of the church, like nah, we're not gonna hear that. But like if like they do, like they just hide like so much. And I think like seeing those kinds of things like really just made me not want to step back in there, because like like if you do that to her, like the sweetest lady in the world, like the sweetest lady, she wasn't even trying to do it on like no weird stuff. She was literally confessing to the God that you told her she needs to confess to, and she was literally like just spilling her heart out. Like she was grieving as well because this man is dead, and like y'all can't see that because like she's a woman, and she's like a black woman at that, and she's a dark-skinned black woman at that, and like you don't see her as desirable, and that also has something to do with it. Like we're not going to take what you say seriously because we don't see you as like a desirable woman who we would want to be with. And so I would just see stuff like that. Like I would never forget that ever in life. Like how it was like a movie, like when they shut down the computer in like this synchronized way. It was like that. It was like, nope, here you go. Have a nice life. And like just push out of the church. And like she just sat in the back pew of the church all the time after that. Like just quiet and like meek. And I was like, I never want to let nobody take my voice like that. I never want to let nobody tell me like what I can and cannot say about what they did to me. And I think a lot of like when I first started writing was like, you gonna see what you did to me, and you gonna feel it, and you gonna read it, and you gonna know it. It was like very petty, right. And it was like very spiteful. But then like when I really like start trying to do the self work on myself, I started realizing it's not even about that. It's literally about like me. Like it's about me, and it's about like my personal essay. It's my personal essay, and like my truth is my truth. And like, yeah, you might experience it differently. You write about it, but that's not what's gonna go up in here because you feel like it's something else. But yeah, I don't know how I got to that, but yeah.
Oh, you got to it, man. You need to have a damn show. I could just listen to you talk, man. I want to get to these questions, but also just want to say one of the things that you also did in the collection play was make me really think about this phrase my grandmama had, which was breath and britches. She'd be like, she talking about men, and she didn't use the word patriarchy, but her critique of patriarchy was that them niggas over there ain't nothing but breath and britches, and she would often use that to talk about the deacons, and so in so many words, my granny was saying like these niggas throw on a suit, sit over there with your legs all open, and we all, for whatever reason, we be genuflecting that are deacons. But if you ask me to this day what the fuck the deacons did, I do not know.
Look at the single mothers in the church and proposition them.
Yep, because they wasn't running that shit. My grandmama running the shit. So anyway, I just want to say, like, again, thank you for this. Thank you for the collection plate. If y'all have not gotten a collection plate, you need it. It's a book that I think you want to read 3-4 times, share with family members, especially people who grew up ritualized sort of like religious black settings. Let's get these questions, and I have a lot more if we get through these quickly. Not that we should get through them quickly. All right, I'm just gonna go down the line. All right, when is the collab book coming out? Shaylin at.
Our collab book. Oh, don't play with me on that. Look, I'm free.
I'm down. I'm letting you know on camera. I'm down.
I'm
down. I mean, I got to get my weight up though, fam. Like you ill with the pro? Nah, cuz you ill with it.
Please.
You ill with it. All right.
You literally taught me how to write essays, reading your books, please.
And look what you said. You say you done with that shit. You can go over here to this poetry. All right. What traditions are poets? This is a good question considering you said you're not really into form. What traditions or poets informed how you write poetry? And I'm gonna say that's a great question because when I saw you in Mississippi, you were rolling with the poets. Remember that reading at somebody's house? I don't know who house that was. So yeah, talk about the traditions and poets that inspire you.
Like if I'm being real, like especially if I'm talking about the content in this book, I would say Isaiah Rashad like single-handedly like gave me permission to do this because I discovered Isaiah Rashad like fresh out of high school. Like he was just coming out, and I would walk to class in Chicago every single day, like just replaying his mixtape, like replaying it. And I replayed it because the way, first of all, he's Southern. Second of all, like country. Third of all, like the way that he was talking about like his father. Like I'm talking about our father literally and figuratively, but like the way that he was just like going in, but also talking about like religion at the same time and just like mental health that I didn't really understand at 18. Like you couldn't tell me I wasn't good with myself at 18. Right. So but I also always love like sad music. Like it makes me happy. Sad music. And so Isaiah Rashad, like I was just he taught me so much about like how to write a poem, like just reading his lyrics. Also, I think like poets. I'm thinking of Nabila Lovelace, Navi. First of all, Navi, Chef's Kiss, top tier. Nobody be doing what Nabi be doing. And I discovered Nabi like later on, like 4 years later, after I met Nabi. And also Danae Smith, like they are amazing. Like I read Don't Call Us Dead, and also like how the cover like assisted with like the content. It was just like probably one of those first books that poetry collections that I read that was just like I can just be myself. Like I can just be myself on the page. I don't have to put on like my poet voice, Shakespearean. I don't have to do that. Like I could just be myself. But also like if I'm really rap in general, like music in general, Maxwell, I'm a big Maxwell fan. It's probably my favorite artist ever. Like I was reading. Yes.
Yo, when we get through these questions, I want to argue with you about Maxwell, but let's.
Is you finna say something problematic?
No, I ain't doing that. I just like to talk. I like to talk shit with niggas I like. I just like to talk about it, you know.
I'm with that. Maxwell 100%. Like I remember just being a kid, like reading Maxwell lyrics in the packet in my mama car because she was playing him all the time. Flowetry, Def Poetry Jam. It was like Black Ice on Def Poetry.
Oh yeah, Black
Everybody know like that poem. Like
yeah.
I was watching that every day. I was like, this is fire. Like I never thought of myself as a poet, but I would always like I wanted to be a poet. I think like quietly, like I really wanted to be a poet. And so I would always like lean towards that, which is why like music is so important in everything I do.
All right. And this is from C again. How comfortable were you changing themes, forms, and even making mistakes? That's a great question during your process. Were there any ideas and images that you knew had to be in your work no matter what? Like no matter what the publisher said? That's a great question.
Thank you for that. It wasn't nothing in particular that I knew just needed to. It really like just revealed itself to me. Like I noticed, like if I think something I write is good, it's usually because over time, like it just starts slowly like revealing itself and putting itself into place. I think this is probably where I actually felt like an artist, and like constructing it and like putting it together and like saying, hey, our father is a reoccurring character, or like water is like a reoccurring character. So I think for me, it was just like trusting my instinct. It wasn't nothing that I like consciously like just said had to go in there. It was just like following like my gut, like when I wanted to write something down and then like taking it, editing it out later. Because like for me, like when I revise and I edit, I don't add more. I'm literally like stripping stuff away. So
I feel that. And in this and in the collection plate with poetry generally, or the poetry in this collection, you found yourself stripping lines, stripping stuff out of it much more.
Those like those small little Our Father poems.
Yes.
That was one very large, mediocre trash poem at first. and I was just like, this ain't hidden, but I like these certain lines. And so like that's when I created like that Our Father. Also Lamar, you know Lamar?
Of course.
Lamar was like, I was talking to Lamar on the phone once, and Lamar like read like these in their first like draft versions, like the first person to read it. And Lamar was like, this needs to be in somebody's mouth. And I was like, he was like, these poems need to be in somebody's mouth. I was like, okay. And I put them in Our Father's. Like it just started doing that. Because that poem, it was like very long, and I wrote it because I was listening to, after like my book release party, I came home from the bar and like I had like a bottle of champagne and I was just drinking it and I was listening to Nobody by like Janae Aiko on repeat. And she was like, she was just talking. She was going in. She a writer too. She be writing. Yes, she be writing. Yeah. And so I was just listening to that on repeat, and like I just started writing like Our Father, and I just started writing like Reminded I'm a Rattle Trap, blah blah blah, like just trying to like get that. Okay, Boogie's Everything for Sale. I forgot to mention that. This album, oh my God, like this album is my favorite album ever. I listen to it every single day, multiple times a day. Like I couldn't get it out of my head. And he has a line in a song that says, I give my arm and my leg to get this out of my head. And that's like the feeling, like, oh my God. It's just like, will it ever stop? Like, will I get it out clearly?
Right.
And so, like, when I was approaching the page, like, I was just thinking of that line, but also like nobody. And I just started like breaking it up like that.
I feel that. So that speaks to Julia's question about the use of our Father throughout. It's so dope too, because it like they're so singular. I would never have thought that they started out as like a cohesive bad poem for sure.
it was trash.
But you're doing a lot with repetition up in this mug. Somebody talked about water as a character. There's a lot of repetition, like really smart repetition, soulful up in here. All right, see, ask again. How do you protect yourself from grief that's coming? That's a really interesting question. How do you protect yourself from grief that's coming?
Thank you. I did it this time. And my whole life I have. Like, I've always protected myself by not like engaging or like isolating myself. I've always done that. I'll disappear for like weeks on people, and I don't mean it like in a mean-spirited way. It's just like I just can't do people right now. And I think that's like sometimes why I get up and leave a lot. Like, I move cities a lot, I move around a lot, and it's just like I literally can't do it. And I think throughout this process of writing this book, I wasn't able to protect myself because I had like clear evidence of like this book that I had to like give readings for, and like this book that I had to like tell people thank you for like saying nice things to me about it, when like deep down I'm like, what's this even like worth it? Like, what's this even like? Is it even? I even be like, this book ain't even that good for all this shit I went through for that. Yeah. And so I think now I'm like in the learning process of trying not to protect myself from grief, because when I did that, like, that's how I ended up on that couch for a year and a half. I never, like, that futon haunts me to this day. Like, I never ever want to feel like that again. So now I like really try to be honest with myself about like how I feel, like if I feel sad or like if I think the biggest thing for me as a person, I really struggle with admitting that I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that. I don't want nobody to be like, Kendra, she like going through it because she hurt. She got her feelings hurt. I always wanted to like absolve myself of that. I always thought I could absolve myself from that. And that's from watching like men around me do that. Like, I would see like, just think like shut down emotionally, and I would do that. Like, I still do that now, and I'm really like trying to stop that and just let myself feel it and go through it, which I don't really do that much. I just like, I know I should do it, but I don't really do it a lot. Yeah.
And I feel like that line I talked about earlier where you said wound for like, I feel like that sort of speaks to like this idea of like grief that you can see coming.
Yeah, like it's coming.
Yeah. Like, and the wound, and in that piece, you like, it's not just grief. Like, that shit is gonna make a fucking crater in your heart, in your body, in something.
And it's not just grief; it's shame, it's guilt. It's really guilt. Like, it's really guilt and it's really shame. And I think like I disguise those emotions with like anger. So like I'm always like extreme, like either I'm angry or I'm happy, or either this is the best thing or this is the worst thing. I don't know how to live in like that middle of like what it actually is. Like, either this is the greatest song in the world, or like I don't never want to hear it again. So like, and that's like wow, to live up and down like that. It's no balance. And I just had to like learn how to like find ways to balance it. Like, I can't balance it with like medicating myself. I can't balance it with like just shutting people out, because that's like mean. Like, I literally have people who love me and care about me, so I can't like continue to do that. But yeah, it's just like balance, and like saying that like, hey, this shame don't have to stay with you, and like this guilt don't have to stay with you if you actually like figure out the root of it.
Yes. And then, and this is a tough one. The Black church raises so many. This is from Shaylin. The Black church raises so many feelings, good and bad, for the Black community. So if you've experienced the negative, do you think you have to forgive the religion / church or yourself for believing tradition over self?
Believing tradition over
Yeah.
self. I don't think I really believe tradition over myself. I think I was just like fearful of like being perceived as like a bad girl. I
Gotcha.
think like that was my big thing. Like I didn't want nobody to like call me fast, or I didn't want, but they was gonna do that anyway. Like it don't matter what you did, they was gonna do that anyway. I didn't want nobody to see me as like quote unquote like bad. But also I think I've forgiven the church because I was never like that deep into it. Like I was there all the time, but like I used to be in the pews playing MASH with myself, or like I used to be in the choir, like playing with all the kids. Like so, I've always like had a distance, it's like in it. Like even though like I'm seeing everything that's going on, I'm right there. I always was like at a distance where like I know I'm gonna be up out this door as soon as I can. So yeah.
Yeah. And Ariel asks, it's about the origin narrative of this amazing book. Kendra, I'd love to hear more about how the project began, how you chose the church as a site of critique. How did you know that this would be the place for you to make the expanse of cultural and political connections that you did? And I think that ties also to how you bring not just our father, but like your actual father as into these poems too. So can you talk about like how you chose the church as a site, and how did you know that this would be a place for you to make the expanse of cultural and political connections that you did?
Hey L, order L's book, Gumbo Yaya. Pre-order that mug right now. It's coming out. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the question. I think I knew like it was a book when I started putting like those Our Father poems in it. At first, it was just like homework. Like I was saying, I was in class, I was doing my homework, and I think when I started like actually putting the words Our Father into it, I was able to like deal with that shame and like deal with that grief and deal with the fact that like this is the story. Like I was thinking the story was like about the church, but really it's like about like patriarchy and like all this other stuff, and also like shame that I was saying. So I wasn't really I wasn't very, that sounds bad, I wasn't very intentional about it until I was intentional about it. When I saw it, I think like when I was saying I was listening to that Janae song, and I started like I was writing like 5 poems a day. Like they weren't good, but they were like very short, like poems, and I would just write them, and I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna make this fit somehow. And so I just started like putting the papers on the floor, putting this line with this line, and sort of like making a puzzle. And I was like, oh, there is like a politic in here, there is like a story in here. I'm big on like narrative, of course. Yeah, I needed to have like an arc. I needed to feel like it's complete, or I won't feel complete. And so I wrote Gifting Back Bread and Barren Land. And I think when I was writing that poem, it was like a moment where I was like, this is what the book is about. Like this poem is what the book is about. So if I can write something about like every line of this poem, then like it constructs itself, like it reveals itself, and it starts to like love me back, if that makes sense. Like you know, like when you writing at some point, like them words just start like being falling into place. And you like, I don't know where this came from, but it just started like flowing and falling, and it became fun at that point because I was putting it together, and it became it ain't therapeutic because I'm iffy about like that word in writing, but it became like clear that like this is what you're supposed to be writing, not that swimming pool stuff that like you were stuck on. Even though that was the avenue that got you there, like that's not what this is.
And it's in, but you write about swimming pools in this a lot, but just not in that same way. Right, that you intended. And you know, one of the things that I'm interested in thinking about is like region. Like how important is region, not in your mind, but in this collection? like region in this collection. And I'm asking because let me ask you why. I'm asking because I want us to pivot into talking about like fastness versus mannish. I don't know. I'm older than you, but when I was young, like little boys was mannish. You know,
we
like,
used to say that.
okay, yeah. So if you were a little boy and you expressed any desire that was outside the bounds, my grandmama would be like, you being mannish.
Yeah.
Conversely, you also would get pat on the back for being mannish by certain people. But my little cousins, when they you know, when grandmama, auntie, and mama and them like, you're a girl, quit being fast. That was something else, right? And so I'm interested in that being the backdrop of the piece you write in there about sex and sexuality and wetness. Can we talk about like how you felt, not writing it, but also putting it in this poem, knowing it could be read by somebody from home who may have called you fast at some point?
I want them to know.
Let them know. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'm thinking about like something I'm writing for like this next book, and it's like a story in there about like I used to go to the rec center after school before like I got into activities and stuff, and so like I would go and like this would be like the time where like boys are discovering butts and like things like that, and how like they would hit you on the butt, like don't even ask, like walk up to you, bam, and you'll be like, what's going on? Or like you want to fight or like things like that. But then also like that chase of like you kind of want them to see your body. Like that's another thing. And I think when I'm writing about like sex and sexuality and stuff like that, I want like that duality of like wanting my body to be loved, but also like do not touch my body at the same time. I want those to coexist. And I'm just thinking about like that chase, like when I was a kid, of where at first, like when the boys first start hitting you on the butt, or they first start like touching on you, like just unprovoked, and you just like, you kind of get used to it after a while, and then at some point, like you kind of want that to happen. And like when they don't do it, it's like, what is wrong with me? But also like growing up in the church, it's like, you are fast. He not fast. He doing what he's supposed to do. But you don't be walking around with these shorts on. You don't be walking around with your lip. Oh, lip gloss was a big thing, which is lip weird. It's like, bro, I don't want my lips to be chapped. Like, why is this sexual? Why are you taking something that a child is doing like so sexually? But also like kids are sexual and like curious. So it's like just that confusion of not knowing my body's place in the world. And I think like when I write poems like My Sex Wet, which is one of my favorite poems in there, like that poem, and when I think about I'm the note held towards the end, when I'm talking about like the Minnie Riperton song, which is, it's about sex, but it's also about like trauma and things like that. I just wanted it to be like my child self tell her like it's okay to have a body, because I didn't think it was okay to have a body. It's okay to have like feelings in your body. It's okay to like want attention. It's okay to like want like touch and like love, because I really, really feared touch. Like I feared touching somebody else's body. That's why I never like talked about nobody body. Like we be scoring on, we say scoring and like we be scoring on people. Like I was never that kid that talked about somebody's body. I was never that kid who talked about somebody's face, like just their physical appearance. Because first you can't control it, and second, I don't know how you feel about your body, because I know how I feel about mine, and I'm like uncomfortable in it, even though like the perception is I'm super confident. I don't know why people thought that about me as a kid. I was faking it. That's probably why. Like I knew how to fake it, and I knew how to like reel it in and control it, but I was never like comfortable like with my body. And I think just now, like maybe in the past year, I just started loving my body. Like I gained like 30 pounds. I was like, oh, you're kind of fine today, or like, oh, you look good. Or like, oh, like I'm cool with like these rolls. I'm cool with like all this. And like as a kid, I was obsessed with my body to the point where like I wouldn't eat like certain things. I remember like one summer I was in high school and I was in Houston. I was eating sunflower seeds every day, doing like push-ups and sit-ups every day, because I wanted a six-pack so bad. And I was like, why do you want that? Like that's so weird. But we have to think about like how desirability tells us like our worth and like who we are, things like that. And I didn't have the language for that, like till recently, to like really try to like write about it. Like I would never write about my body or like sex or something like that 3 years ago. So yeah.
I think it was amazing to me that you did not fold the content of My Sex Wet into another poem, because that would have been the easier thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, but naming it My Sex, because you know, poetry, because I think people convince themselves they don't know how to read poetry. You know, you can read that if it was titled something else and be like, well, maybe she was, but that shit is called My Sex Wet. Right?
Yeah.
What like middle is, it feels like it's in the center. It feels central to the book.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
It's 100% central to the book. That was like one of the first poems that I've ever wrote that I was proud of, because like I said, I didn't really know. And I think like that poem, it says so much about my upbringing. It says so much about like, because my mama wasn't a person who like shied away from talking to me about sex.
Yeah.
She was talking to me about sex since I was 6, like literally, like just talking to me about it, what it is, what it feels. I remember one time I asked her, I was watching Top Shelf, and they was like, it's an orgasm in your mouth. And I was like a kid, and the cake was like an orgasm in your mouth. They was like a chocolate cake. And my cousins was there, and I was asking them, I was like, what's an orgasm? And they started laughing because kids. And they was like, ask your mama. I was like, bet. Like, bet. So I was like, Mama, what's the orgasm? And she was just like, where you hear that at? That's what she said at first. I said, on this show, they cooking. And she was like, an orgasm when sex feel real good. And I was like, oh, okay. So like, just like that knowledge that she's like, I'm so grateful for that, even though she was also like, you don't have sex until you get married. Like, it was like weird, extremes. Like I said, it was extreme. It was like, you was like, I was seeing one thing, but then like I was getting told another. And so that poem for me, like when I'm talking about like forced up baby, forced into my life, admitted back into the body, like when we come out into the world, we come out into wetness, like we come out dripping wet, and like what that represents in terms of like sex, anatomy, things like that, what it procreates.
Do you think that the Black churches as we know them can hold like honest explorations of body and politics and patriarchy and misogyny? Like, I know that they have not, but do you think they can? Like does bringing this sort of shit into church necessarily like obliterate what we consider church, and or is there a way to bring this sort of ritualized exploration into that space and site? And do you think we need to?
I think we need to, but I don't think it's gonna happen. If I'm being real, like I don't think that's like something that the Black church has the capacity for, because it's so rooted into like routine and like tradition and like right and wrong that, like I said, it's like no gray area. And like if you can't find pleasure and pain coexisting at once, if you can't even like admit like the harmful nature of like some of the practices of the church, and there's no way that like they'll read something like this and just be like, you have a point. It would be like like it's not space for that. It's not space for that. They don't want the space. Well, in my experience, I haven't seen them like want the space for that. So I would say no.
Yeah. Somebody said I can't imagine any church having the capacity to do so.
Do you think so?
I mean, I think we could. I think there's gonna, but like, you know, who is the we? I think to do that you have to like get rid of like this idea of like this weird pastor being like the point of the fucking triangle. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't think you can have like some pastor who probably shouldn't be there being the point, and then having this sort of exploration and reckoning be central. The reckoning necessitates that this dude ain't the point no more, right?
He's not the God.
Not the guy. And so I mean, you know, I'm always one of people think like, you know, we can create some shit. I mean, I do think people have this, and some people might call it community or friendships, but like that shit is church to some people. You know, what I mean? It just ain't. It just doesn't have the same sort of tradition that we come from. All right, but okay, Dallas. I got 4 questions for you.
Go ahead.
Dallas, Houston, the Chi. Tell me, put them in. Who's number 1? Who's number 2? Who's number 3?
Dallas, Chicago, Houston.
No question.
No question.
Oh, okay. I thought that was gonna be a little harder.
No, it's not hard. Dallas, Chicago, Houston.
Okay, that's my first question. Second question. I got 3 of them. Prince, Maxwell, Isaiah Rashad.
No. Okay. Are we talking about like just influences on my work or just who I'm with?
Who you fuck with the most?
Okay. This gonna hurt my mama heart, but I love Prince, but he gotta go last. Okay, I love Prince. I feel like I'm being set up. Okay, so I'm really gonna go. This is so bad. I'm showing my age. I'm gonna go Isaiah Rashad, Maxwell, Prince.
Wow, that's what's up. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Look at all the princes.
They said Prince. Oh, somebody said what? Okay, all right. I don't know if I want to do you like. Oh yeah,
You family. You already started.
All right. I will do. All right, this is my second to last one. Poets. Nabi. Dinez. Jericho Brown.
This is rude. Like,
it's rude. So rude. I'm rude. I ain't got no manners.
You really don't. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go Nabi, Dinez, and Jericho.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. Okay.
No malice, just violence. Facts.
All right. Last question, fam. The place you have the least fond memories of.
That's easy.
Church. Growing up in church.
Uh-huh.
Alabama. Hell.
Okay. In order of like worst. Oh, just pick one. Okay. Alabama by far.
Word.
Yes, Alabama from top to bottom, year 1 to year 3, Alabama.
Wow. And I think it's important that you say that because on the surface, your career was the career that MFA students long for, right? Like on the surface, like you come there, you do your thing, your book comes out, you win this huge award, but that ain't life.
No,
that ain't
that
life.
was the beginning of a downfall.
Of a downfall, yeah. I almost taught there, but they didn't act right.
I heard about that, and I was like, no, do not come here. Like, don't do that.
They didn't act right.
They don't be acting right. They don't deserve you, but
it's so interesting. I love, but what's interesting is like I always tie places to the people I love there. So for me, University of Alabama is Nabi. You know what I mean? Not them folks that was acting funny style. So me to say the collection plate. We want to bring ER on to talk more about the book and to tell us goodbye. But thank you, Kendra, so much for the collection plate, fam. Like We just tipped the surface of this book, y'all. But please, if you haven't already bought it, find a way to get it tonight. Share it with your people, and let's maybe meet together again and just talk about the book. And Kendra can be watching. But you gave us something. You gave those of us who walked that part of that route. You gave us a way to look back and not feel ashamed. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Can I just say, like, thank you. Not only, like, did you introduce me to what essay writing was, like, you're my favorite writer. I'm, like, so honored.
That's so what's up.
You literally, like, I don't like just your word about I got an agent because you said my work was good. I got like all this like jump started basically because of like you being like who you are. Thank you, like just for loving black folk in general, black southern folk. Like you are amazing. Please rest. Please say no. Please just like be you. Like
Thank you,
everybody,
fam.
we all like really, really love you.
Thank you, fam. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, thank you both so much. This was such a beautiful conversation, and I dropped the link also for the audiobook. So we partner with Libro FM for the audiobook, and this audiobook is so beautiful and so good, and I know folks are going to want to hear it. So we do encourage folks to get the the paper book, but in this case, folks may also really want the audiobook. So I'll drop that one more time in the chat. You can click this teal button to get the paper book from us. And we would love for you also, if you've not gotten the re-releases of Kiese's beautiful books as they are meant to be read, I'm going to drop those links in there. Saw folks talking about Gumbo Yaya. That is available for pre-order. So lots of great stuff happening. We would love for folks to support your local independent feminist bookstore and buy your friends' books. So thanks everybody so much. Thank you to the Auburn Avenue Research Library. And yeah, I hope y'all stay well, get some rest, enjoy your summer. And congratulations, Kendra. This is a beautiful book. This was so fun. And I hope that you just get to enjoy this time and be present with it. So thanks for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Y'all.
Thank
Thank
you,
y'all for
y'all.
having
Thank you,
me. Thank
Patricia.
y'all.
Thank you, my mama.
Bye.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Rose.